Now, you should be reminded that I'm not an English teacher, and a real English teacher would probably not agree with a lot of the stuff I say in this series, and especially not in this video, because I'm going to show you some tips and tricks that are not really cheating, but it certainly is a way of working the system to reduce the amount of clicking and typing that you have to do to get your citations right. And so we talked in the last video about how to format and how to do your citations and getting them into your document, but often the problem is finding the citations in the first place. Too often people, I think, will go to Google because that's our go-to search engine, right? If we need to look up something or research, we Google it. Well, that works 90%, 99% of the time for everyday stuff, but when we're doing research or something that we plan to turn in to our instructor, they're expecting a little bit more. And so I'm going to show you how to do that little bit more without a whole lot of extra work. And so my sample topic for today, I think we're going to take on free speech. It's generic enough that we should be able to find some good stuff, and it's universal enough that it maybe is actually something that you care about or are interested in. So what I like to do, the big no-no is Wikipedia. Instructors hate to see in your citations page that you found something from Wikipedia. So the first trick that I want to show you, and perhaps the biggest and the best one, is Wikipedia. So I just went to wikipedia.org, and I'm going to look up free speech, and let's see what comes up. Freedom of speech. And so we're not surprised that there's a whole list of stuff here that perhaps this is useful, and it's probably legit and relevant and good stuff. But if I want to cite this page, I don't want to say Wikipedia in my I don't want to just copy this as my citation. That's a big no-no, and instructors are looking. They're going straight to your references pages looking, well, did this guy use Wikipedia for anything? And so the way to get around that, and it's not really cheating, it's just a few extra clicks, really. So let's say that we wanted to draw something. If we remember, we like to start with some interesting statistic if we can, and so maybe we can find something that and I'm really winging it here because I have not looked this up, but I'm looking for maybe something that they have quantified or something interesting that I can start my paper with, and I don't see anything right off. So we'll just go with this history of dissent and truth. So if I read this this piece here, the origins of copyright law in most European countries, blah 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 blah. Okay, so that looks interesting. Maybe I want to include that. So I would rephrase that statement and use it in my paper, and then cite Wikipedia, right? No, I don't want to cite Wikipedia, but look in Wikipedia. What is this little number here? If I click on this number, it jumps down to the end. This is the bottom of the page I'm on, and they have a list of references. And so what I can do is use this reference. Now I need to make sure to format according to APA or whatever format I've decided to use, but I can see this is actually a real book. And I can use this. I'm going to cite this book instead of citing Wikipedia. I just used Wikipedia to help me find the reference. And so here's our next problem. How do I cite this book? I don't actually have this book, but I know that it is it's a print book, right? And I know what they said in it because I found it in Wikipedia, but I don't have to take Wikipedia's word for it. I can look at this. Sometimes they will have a preview where you can actually You can actually see pages in the book, and we'll look at that in a second. But right now, I really just want to dig out the citation. So a trick here is to click on this Find in Library. I click on Find in Library, and I really don't care if it's in a library or not. I just want to get to this WorldCat page. Now, if I care, I can see that here are some libraries that actually have this book. If I care to go 102 miles and find the book, I can, but I really don't. I just need the citation. It's right up here. There's a little tool. I say Cite Export. What am I on? I'm on APA. So all of a sudden, here's my APA formatted citation that I can just copy paste into my document. And so that's a legit citation, and it doesn't say Wikipedia in there anywhere. So I've used this a dozen times or more. It works really great. In fact, I really lean on Google Books. If you go to books.google.com, and let's just do a search for free speech on campus. And I do a search, and this first one that comes up looks relevant, and if I click on that, now Google Books, this page is actually trying to sell me this book, and I'm not interested in buying the book. I'm just interested, and so you see that a lot of the pages are missing, but that's okay. Probably I can still find enough in this book to support whatever argument I'm trying to make, or the statement that I'm trying to get away with. I can probably find that. In fact, you can even search within this preview here in Google Books. And so I would read. You actually have to read a little bit and see, oh, here's something that's interesting. Or this guy, if I wanted to use this line, the pro-free speech case needs to be made anew, even as campuses redouble, blah, blah, blah. If that's something that's valuable to me, even this sentence here, here's something. I like numbers. People are drawn to numbers. Very often in the past, especially in the 1960s and 1970s, campus free speech issues arose. So that's not something I could just say, that statement there. I would need to cite that if I were going to use it in my own paper. But that's easy. I can say that in a different way, and then I can say I want to get this book in print, find in library, and do this Cite Export, and there's my APA citation right there. It says, sorry, no libraries have it, but I don't really care because I've got my citation. And that's actually a print book, and I didn't have to list in my references that I found this on a web page. Even though I did find it on a web page, I didn't have to, in my references, I didn't put a web address, which is it's sort of frowned upon, I guess, in reference pages, but you can generally get away with it more and more. But it's better if you can just find a print book and cite that. So one other thing I want to show you on maybe how to cheat and get away, and this is actual research, I guess you would say. If you have access to an online library, and if you're affiliated with a university or college in some way, this is Auburn's, and so there's a whole separate video on how to navigate and how to do these Boolean searches and things. So we won't do that because we're not concerned. Your library is going to have a different way of doing that, but regardless of what your library looks like, you should end up with a page that looks sort of like this. I did a search for free speech on college campuses, and there's only 10 here. If I just say free speech, let's see. The issue with these types of searches is a lot of times they end up with thousands. This one only has 780, but I've seen this number be 10,000 before. And so you can limit over here. I usually limit to within the last 10 years. So that narrowed me down to 149, and I want the full text. So I'm down to 99, which means I can read the whole thing. You can limit it by other things if you care. I do like to do this peer reviewed, and so we're down to 60. And so let's just go with this top one. A lot of times you can get what you need out of this abstract. You don't have to read. This one's only 7 pages. It's been referenced 27 times. And a lot of times you can get the information you need right out of this abstract. And so I say, yep, this is what I want. I'm going to cite it. And I go down here to APA, and there I go. Now, one thing that sometimes happens, I'm going to try to see if I can get Word going here. It opened my other window. If you just copy paste, I'm going to paste this. Now that one worked okay, but sometimes it copies and it pastes over all of the formatting. And so you need to make sure that when you paste the text in here, you go back and you update all of the formatting. A big red flag for your instructor is if you've got one reference that is this font, and then you've got another reference that's this font, and you've got one that's bold and one that's not bold, and maybe one is highlighted in some weird color. I see that sometimes too when you copy and paste from the internet. Sometimes you see a weird highlight, or that's a dead giveaway that this was copied and pasted from somewhere. So what you do is you just do a select all, and you say I want this all to be, where's my Times New, generally Times New Roman, and I want it to be 12, and you bold everything and then unbold everything, and then say no color and make it all black. And so these are the same citation, but I'm consistent now. I think we talked about in the first video how consistency is really key in this. Your instructor wants to see something that not only is formatted correctly, but looks good on the page. If you got all kinds of weird fonts and colors and things that don't make any sense, then that's frustrating to try to read, and your instructor doesn't like that. So hopefully that is helpful. Let me know if you have any other tips and tricks that maybe you have discovered. My favorite by far is the Google Books approach. I've used that a very lot, and that's one of my favorites, because there's so many books out there. So hopefully that was helpful, and if not, let me know. If so, I can keep doing this type of video. Thanks.